everyone, and welcome to my podcast where we talk flowers, floral arranging, gardening, and more. I'm Tiffany Rutkowski, and my husband and I are the owners of Creative Designs by Tiffany, a floral and gift shop and micro event space. To find out more and stay up to date, visit our website at cdbytiffany.wordpress.com and connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. I'm passionate about all things beautiful, mainly flowers, and teaching you how to savor all the things of it. You'll hear tips, tricks, and from some of my highly esteemed friends in the business. And today I'm joined by Dave Warner, producer of Tiffany Talk. Highly esteemed friends. That's it. That's you.
That's a mouthful you got going there in the beginning,
It
right?
is. Well, I try to get all the logistics out of the way at the beginning and then actually talk. And today I'm actually nervous because it's just me today. I don't have any guests to bounce off of. So
I'll do a lot of bouncing.
Here we go. There you go.
Yeah.
So we won't talk politics today. We can get into politics and religion,
fun.
then we'll just bounce off of that this way.
Really.
And we're recording today from the beautiful My Little Falls studio. So it's such a nice studio. I was thinking of it today. This is the first day I think I've driven down here and it's raining. And I was well, it'll still be really nice inside the studio. It won't look any different to me. So
can't rain on this equipment, right?
So it'll be good. And the lighting's still nice. And what do they say? Like those light boxes over the winter for us, they make it a little bit nicer. So our vitamin D and all of that you can't tell it's winter, but in New York State, you still can tell. So, and I'm loving the long days where it's like 9:20 or so before it actually gets dark at our house, which is pretty neat.
Really
so,
dark.
Yes. Yeah. So it's very nice. It's that dusky time or whatever. Yeah. So it's exciting. So anyway, but it is mid-July now. So we're halfway through summer, according to Bill Cardis's meteorological thing or whatever. Which is crazy to me. So,
well, I mean, with June 21st, longest day. Yep. So, you start losing time every day after that. About 2 minutes a day.
What are they doing with the time change? Do you know anything about that?
I have no idea.
I don't know either. I've been hearing it and I make a calendar every year. So it goes school year calendar. And I was like, I'm putting it on there because I haven't heard anything, but I try and think on that too of how
I think there was some legislation and I don't know. I don't believe it passed, but I think they were talking about it in Congress.
So we'll see. We'll see if I have to get up earlier or later or if it's all going to be the same.
I just wish we'd stop jumping back and forth.
I know.
Set it and let's leave it where it is right here.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. So anyway, well today, like I said, it's just me today. So hello everyone. So what we're going to talk about is there's this term that when you're going to get any flowers or going for mainly for like something like a wedding, you're going to go for flowers, photography, videography. And there's this new term that basically I was thinking of it on the way down too. What is it? It's just expensive. They say investment. It's an investment. So you're investing in things.
I've heard that from my wife. She said, I was making an investment in our relationship when I got a really expensive bed.
Exactly. That's it. So it all follows through. So it's not like saying, it's real expensive anymore. It's the investment. And I've looked at some websites and things and figuring out what the investment actually means. Everyone just uses it as that term to not say really expensive. But for anybody in lay terms, it's really expensive. But this is why. So that's why I want to break it down today with you with some of the flowers. So we're going to talk about that and some of the micro event space that I do up at the store, how that all ties in, what you get for your investment. See?
And I have a quick question. Has the inflation hit you as far as flowers and things?
My goodness. Absolutely.
Oh, really?
So we had on, and I was looking at it too. Erica was just on a couple of months ago. She was on in March from Best in Bloom. So for their delivery prices, and I'm going to break it down a little bit more for you too, but for their delivery prices, that used to be $12, $13, and they could bring whatever you needed. So they could bring 10 boxes, 1 box, 15 boxes, 50 boxes. Now it is $20 roughly. And I'm very bad at this, calculating the cost. So that doesn't really funnel into my pricing when I do it, but it should, because it's something that's, again, we'll go into that today. If you're ready for it, we'll see. Okay. So basically how it works out is like we talked about with Erica. So she'll come in. This is the distributor way. I have a really good connection with one of my local growers that she's really cool with me. And she'll be like, all right, do you need 10 stems of snapdragons or 10 stems of, actually, I'm looking at it now. I have to use this today. So this is some local flowers, some regular flowers that come from the distributor, if you can see them in this little bunch. So first off, let's guess, how much do you think this actually costs for just this little bunch? There's 3 roses in it, some Queen Anne's lace, and some of dianthus is what they call it. So
your cost or
Well, what would you think you would pay for this? A little bit of ribbon, a little bit of tissue
you
paper.
Or me?
You.
What I would like to
yes.
pay, $15.
Okay, $15. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to write that down here now.
Uh-oh.
So we're going to go. So I got to remember it for later because we're going to break it down.
Oh, wow.
So now this is where
I didn't know I was going to be put on the spot here.
I didn't know I was going to either. See, this is what happens when it's just me. I have no plan. I just roll with it. So,
okay.
So here's how it goes. So basically the roses are something that comes from the distributor, and that Queen Anne's lace did as well. Queen Anne's lace is one of those things that if you see it on the side of the road, there's an invasive and there's Queen Anne's lace. So a lot of people think the invasive is Queen Anne's lace. You have to be really careful. That's why I always go with the distributor stuff. So I'm not worried about, oh, I think this is really pretty on the side of the road. Let me cut it down. It's not what you need. So anyway, so with the flowers itself. So these roses, they come in packs of 25. Okay. So, and I should have brought a whiteboard with me and be real teacher-like so you can follow along. But anyway,
people on a podcast couldn't see
right. They couldn't see it anyway. So you have to envision
be on the YouTube channel.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So you have to kind of envision it with it. So if you have 25 roses, this is my cost it's 25 roses times however much the cost is. It used to be that you could get them for sometimes 99 cents, 85 cents in the summer because it wasn't really peak time. Those prices have jumped now that they're between $195 and $210 a stem. So inflation, right? So if you're thinking
what
our
inflation
cost,
that growing them, I mean, unless they're going to mess with fertilizer or something else, and they're saying that's gone up.
So this is now where you have to kind of figure out your niche market, and this is where I'm at with the things that I do. So I liked these quicksand roses. We've had these on numerous times that I like to get. So I know right across the board what I was paying a year ago till now, haven't changed anything. Those have gone up about double in price. So when you're thinking that way, and then you're thinking, well, I used to pay $5 a stem for a rose. Now am I paying $10? Well, me in a small market, I can't do that. So that's going to be very honest with my small hometown market area. That's not going to be able to happen. And so that's where you're thinking now, getting into a bigger picture of like the funeral arrangements and your wedding arrangements, people that are doing really large scale events. How are we hitting that cost and taking it in, you know? So that's what we're going to.
But inflation's only at 9.0%.
Oh, is it?
9.01%. Yeah, not double.
I don't know. So for flowers, it basically is. So we're looking at roughly a little bit more. Then for my delivery costs, like I said, looking at 40% more for delivery. Then you take all of the little pieces of it. So if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to get a dozen of roses. How many stems did I quiz you on this now? See, you don't want to be my co-host today.
Dozen? 12.
So a dozen is 12. And then how many do they come packed as? We just said it.
You just said 25, right?
Yeah, so 25.
Right.
So for a florist, if I'm sitting on this color, but you want red roses, so then I'm going to have to get an additional red pack in. So now I have 50 stems, right?
Lord.
So then if somebody comes in and says, well, you know what? I'd like a mixed bouquet of a dozen roses, all different colors. So you're thinking, I have pink, purple, yellow, white, all of these quicksands, reds. How many are piling up there? So then you're taking your cost and breaking it down from there. So a lot of times you'll see now that like just on an everyday floral basis, you're taking one color. The more colors you add, the more expensive it gets, right? So,
because you can't guarantee that you're going to sell those other colors is the problem. You could get stuck with them.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that you have to weigh and balance depending on what kind of florist you are. So someone that knows that they have a weekly customer of yellow roses, no big deal. They have yellows in already. They may take a risk and get some pink or some purple. There's formulas that they use with the Teleflora type of stuff, which is Teleflora. I'm not a big fan of them. I'm a small town business and I will always plug the small town businesses. So go directly to your local florist. That's where you get the better rate. Teleflora is a big gamut that they say, oh, this florist can promise you this arrangement, when in reality, that florist is struggling to figure out, do I want yellows or whites this week? And then they get an order for purple. They go, wait a minute. And that's where you see a lot of times when you order online that they'll supplement and they'll give you different pieces instead of giving you the ones that it looks like in that picture. So that's where calling directly your florist.
I want what I saw.
And you can see exactly what they have. And if you call directly, they'll say, well, we have, yellow and white in this week. So then you can say, well, what else do you have for those colors? So that's my bid on keeping it local, not going outside.
Well, you can tailor it more.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So then when you get into the flowers for weddings, so obviously weddings, they have a lot of different pieces in it. So you have not just your roses, but you have like your baby's breath or something similar to this. So filler flowers, what we're calling with this. Then your greenery. So we're going to debunk the greenery myth. Do you think greenery costs the same? more or less than flowers would?
Well, initially I would say less.
Okay. Why do you think though?
Because it's just filler.
Right. It's just filler.
I mean, filler
just like
shouldn't
these
be
flowers.
the same price as a rose.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that we're going to debunk that today.
Oh, good.
Not true. So the greenery will cost you just as much as the stem. So when you take it all as a whole, you would think that these pieces here that are just fillers are not going to be as much as these, the roses or the Gerber daisies or the big focal flowers, I like to call them.
How could they be?
Isn't that crazy, right? So this is where the greenery comes in. And this is what I try to do is I try and use as much local stuff as I can in the summers. And so like the forsythia bushes that have already done their yellows, but there's a lot of green that comes off of it. I'll try and use those to supplement. If you wanted specific flowers, your investment, you see, that's that term again. Your investment is paying for those greens, I should say. So you have the ruscuses, you have the eucalyptus, and sometimes the eucalyptus ends up being more than what the actual flowers are. Mind blowing, right? Yeah. So you'll see these installs of people that are doing, the baby's breath or greenery, and it's just that. On the end of it, it's going to cost just about the same as if you had real flowers in there too. So when you're looking at it that way too, right now, baby's breath at stem is around $1.20 a stem. So you're right in there. Not quite as much as a rose, but definitely more than what the fillers are. So when you're thinking of it as a whole and you want, say, 10 or 12 different flowers in your arrangement, it's all going to mix in together, and that's your investment piece. But there's different ways around it. So you don't have to be too scared and intimidated by it. But, you could go all one color, all same flower. And that helps out because then you're using that 25 sets of roses or 50 or whatever the increment is, and not having all these other ones, which makes your prices go up. So it's interesting.
You could flip it around. And so somebody talking to you could say, look, if you want to save a little bit of money, go with one color for your wedding as opposed to a whole bunch. And then let me use some local filler. So there's a way to modify your investment.
There is, exactly. And it's all on what you think is your investment. So some people may say, you know what, I really like that baby's breath look. So just go all baby's breath. It's 100% baby's breath and you don't have to worry about it. What I tend to see is that we want to go not lower, but more on a scale that, we can pay for.
What you can afford,
Right. We want to add some flowers. We want to add some sunflowers, but we really like that baby's breath. I would suggest sticking with just baby's breath and keeping it in one monotone thing, having a couple vases of a couple of different flowers in it. But that saves you in the long run, because then once you start getting into a few of these and a few more, it ends up costing a lot more too in the long run, which is crazy. So our formula, if you can believe this, do you remember how much it was for a rose? I said right now, around, give or take.
I think it was $2.20?
Yeah, about $2, we'll say, just to make it easy for today. So the florist formula, dun, dun, dun.
Oh, you need music for that? I don't know.
And this is where I'm just rolling with. Otherwise, I tell you, we got to have this and this and a big, a big boom. But this is where the florist, so this is the florist formula that they tell you to follow. And I had a book from 2001 that the old owner had grandfathered down to me. So I got looking at it and I said, well, I'm going to place in all of these pieces that I have. I'm just going to run an arrangement through. So for what you're supposed to charge,
I can do a drum roll.
You can do a drum roll.
I can do a drum roll.
Supposed to.
Here we go. The number's coming.
Here comes 3.5 times 2. So what's 3.5 times 2?
7.
Yeah, $7 a rose.
7.
That's what So this little arrangement right here, just with roses, would end up being 7, 14, 21 plus filler. Amazing, isn't it?
Oh, that's crazy.
It's crazy, right? So then this is your investment. But then you have these little pieces. There's 2 extra pieces and then 2 pieces of the dianthus.
Just for this thing?
Yep. And then you have your ribbon or whatever they wrap it with. And this is just a grab and go. So this is where I have a friend too, that she has a business up in Dollarville. And we've talked about it, that her cost should be triple and she does double, just because that's how it works in a small town. You kind of have to offset that cost. That's about usually where I end up coming in at, but it's not ideal. That's what, where you go to bigger places and bigger cities, that's where you're seeing $4, $5, $6, $7, $8,000 for something that you think is worth 15 would end up being probably around 30. Crazy, right? So this is the debunking the myth, and I didn't even put any greenery in it. Isn't that nuts?
I know people on the podcast can't see what you're holding, but it's just like a
It's like a little, I call it a posy, honestly, because a posy has 5 to 6 stems in it. And so this is just a grab and go posy. I'll rustle it for the podcast so they can hear it. It's just wrapped in paper, has a little bit of ribbon on it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So then you take it.
You would never think $30.
Crazy, right?
Never.
You would never think $30. And especially around here. So that's where you have to know your market too, on who you're servicing, what they're doing, what their investment is looking to be. So there's a lot of ways around it though, that different florists, we have a bunch of things that are going out for sunflowers, and we have extra sunflowers because we didn't use them, because there's another formula for that too that we overbuy on. So that's where it really comes in with that flexibility on a day-to-day basis, that you can say, well, whatever you want to do and whatever you want to design, you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck just because we have extra sunflowers that day. So you're going to have the freshest flowers a little bit more because it's just extras, honestly, from something else. So that's where that flexibility comes in of saying, I want a dozen all different colored roses today. That's going to be the most expensive way that you can go, just because it's the variety and all the other things. So absolutely insane, isn't it? So then
small business is easy.
That's what they say. Oh yeah, that's what they always say.
Yeah.
And it is. It's one of the toughest things to navigate, because my biggest thing is that I'm trying to be, and I have it right up at the top of my notes for today, stewardship. That's the word that I always say. And I try to be a good steward with what I'm given. So anything that I do with the flowers, same thing. I try and steward my flowers and make sure that I have the right stuff in at the right time. So, but it's a variable, right? Because
there's a lot to it.
Yes.
I mean, you wouldn't think it. You'd think a floral shop.
Right.
That's easy. Go get some flowers and sell them and mark them up a bit, make some money,
exactly.
Right? Easy.
And it's not anything anybody wants that week. So then what happens?
Oh,
right.
You're stuck with them.
So, right. Exactly. And then because they're not something that, like you can have a can of, I don't know, peanuts or something, and they have a 2-year expiration.
Yeah.
In a week, these are going to fade off, and that's it. So there's a lot of little intricate things that you can do with it. And you kind of have to think on that and think that way too with small businesses. I mean, people, I would think, that do food, it's the same thing. I mean, you have that
anything perishable.
Yeah. And so, you see that too with even going out to eat. Brian came up to the store and was talking about that, how the cost has gone up. I'm not in restaurant business, but I am figuring it's around the same thing that's happening with flowers. So
who would want to be right now?
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. And you just have to take it. And like you said, I'm really not sure where that inflation is coming from, but it seems to be something that we're having to deal with. So,
well, I mean, we know some of the causes of it, but the numbers, all the things that are happening.
Right.
In other words, you're getting smaller portions.
Yes.
I saw a story today where the box was bigger and they were putting less in it.
Yes. Yep.
So it looked like you were getting more, but you were actually getting less, and you were paying significantly more. I mean, that means there's gimmicks going on.
Yes.
There's playing. It's not true inflation, but inflated inflation.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
New term. We coined
there's
here.
a new one.
Inflated inflation.
Inflated inflation. That's a good way to look at it too, because it's true. And that's where, for me, try to be a good steward, that I don't like to do things like that. I don't want to say to you, okay, you're getting a $50 arrangement, but that's actually my $20 arrangement. It's exactly what you're paying for. And that's the struggle back and forth with it, especially for weddings and things. So we'll get into that in a couple minutes on the micro event space, how this is working and how it actually benefits for my kind of line of work too. But anyway, so back to that, you're looking at, first off, 3.5 times the flower price, this is the technical formula that every florist is supposed to use from here to Timbuktu. Okay, your typical flowers are going to be 3.5 times as much, and your hard goods are going to be 3 times as much. So if I'm paying, I just got some pottery in. So the pottery is $15 at my cost. 15 times 3 is 45. So you're looking at 45 plus your 30. So there's $75 for this in a little pottery piece, right?
Good Lord.
$75. So now we're talking boutiques. This is what you're looking at here. So then you have your $75, and then to take in the cost for the florist. So what our time is and however long it takes us to process it and, have the waters made and all of that. You're supposed to take 20% of that. So 20% of $75 is roughly $15.
$15. Yeah.
So there you're at $90. Then you have beautiful New York State with the New York State tax times 0.0825, which ends up being $96.25, I believe. And these are numbers that I have off the top of my head.
It's $100 for that. Now you've gone to $100.
Yep. Isn't that insane?
That's insane.
Then when you're thinking too, for like your wedding flowers, that's where the investment term keeps coming in with everyone, because obviously this isn't enough to put out on a table. You're going to need 30 of these or 40 or 50 of these. So it's one of those things that, just to have an idea when they're giving you prices, this is what you're looking at, and this is the reason why. So a lot of times, a lot of florists will take on that cost and will eat the cost, we call it. So instead of charging 3.5 times like we're supposed to, we'll say there's so many that you're doing. So maybe it might be 2 times as much
quantity,
or 4 times. Yes. Yep. And it does help too when we buy in bulk. That's another thing too that's been happening. So there is a distributor in Holland that is a very large distributor. Not a fan. Like I said, I like to do local as much as I can. But in Holland, they have this new program that you can buy 10 bunches of things for the same price that you would pay for 2 bunches, just simply because you're buying more of a quantity than less than. So it's an interesting concept too when you're balancing it out, because like I told my husband, I said, maybe I should just start buying in bulk and paying the same exact amount, but then having all these flowers to throw out later. So that's another way to look at, the business owner thing. That you have to kind of think on these ways, what's going to be best for the area. And honestly, where I'm at, that may actually be a better way to go.
Well, that would look cool too, because you'd have a ton of flowers everywhere. So you walk in and buy something and you'd have just everywhere.
Exactly. So it's one of those things that you have to think about. And that's the give take on it too, because then I'd be giving up my local people, because I'd have to be buying from a box overseas, which they do have great quality and product, but it's an intertemporal dilemma for me on supporting local. That kind of goes into the whole, do you go to Walmart and pay $1 or $2 for something, or buy it from a small shop somewhere else? That's what Holland is for me.
Well, they're forcing you to do that because, I mean, people's money only goes so far.
Exactly.
They start to consider those options like, geez.
It is. And that's the funny thing too, is that I'll see too, like nowhere around here. We'll disclaimer that nowhere around here, but they will still use things like you'll go to the dollar store and you'll pick something up and they'll reuse it because it's cheaper than us buying something through the distributor, which that never used to be. Yeah. So it's crazy. And, my personal opinion on it is that too, you don't want to go into someone's shop and say, I just saw that in Target. Are we going to, I could buy that for $4, but you have it for 10. Like, that's my own personal, I don't know, pet peeve. But unfortunately, I think that maybe some ways it's going that way. So anyway, did you learn a little bit though about that? So if
I learned not to go in the floral business.
Exactly. Investment. This would be your investment. But luckily today for you, these are yours. So what a great investment.
Minus the pottery,
right,
$70.
Exactly. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane though. Yeah. And so that's where I figured today we'll kind of debunk that myth too, like the fillers and the greens. It's not going to be cheaper to go that way either. You're still looking at an overall full cost, and they're put at 3.5 times. Wow. So absolutely insane. So I guess we'll take a quick break though, and then I'll tell you about, and this is my cue for, I guess, a quick break. Yeah. We'll do a quick break, and then I'll talk to you a little bit now about our micro event space.
Cool.
Visit My Little Falls and stay connected with the latest news, information, and events in the city and the area. Our mission is to generate interest in the community and connect residents in a more meaningful way by facilitating deeper conversations about how these stories will shape the future of the Mohawk Valley. Join thousands of weekly visitors who stay up to date with feature stories, interviews, videos, our event calendar, and print publication, the Mohawk Valley Express. It's about timely local news for the community, keeping citizens informed about important issues, telling about the people who live and work here, and giving locally owned businesses the opportunity to reach a very targeted audience of locals and tourists alike. It's a whole new form of media-rich content developed specifically for today's mobile lifestyle and listeners. You can download our iOS app in the iTunes Store, listen to our country music streaming radio station, or sign up for a weekly newsletter. Stop by today at mylittlefalls.com. You'll be glad you did.
How long has My Little Falls been around?
Oh, yeah. We had a 4-year anniversary, July 4th, actually.
Oh, cool.
Although I had been covering things in the area prior to that under the Art in the Adirondacks name.
Okay.
But
My Little Falls.
Well, I had been thinking about it, and then I woke up the morning of July 4th, didn't have anything to do that day, wasn't planning on a big barbecue, family, whatever, and I said, I'm going to do it. 9 hours later, all social media, the site had stories in it. It looked like it had been around for years. It's just kind of what I do.
Moral of that story is invite Dave to barbecues. Otherwise, he's going to start new projects and they're going to become new news media as a corporation.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. You may be hearing about some other stuff soon.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. That's so, you got to do the time frame though and say, instead of going to a barbecue, I just decided to start my own media company.
I spent 9 hours and started a media company. It had been in the back of my head.
Yeah.
I had done something on the print side similar called Community Focus many years ago.
Okay. Yep.
So it came out of that idea of a small community. This was in Texas, and it was Universal City, Texas, Shirts, Converse, little communities that are all together, like Dallasville, Little Falls, you know,
That's
kind
really
of thing.
Neat. Yep.
And it was very successful.
That's
so
really neat.
I had thought, you know what, I could do that here, you know, kind of thing. I'm bored.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
I wasn't bored.
Well, seriously, 4 years later, look at this and stuff.
Yeah, it's going. It's there's a lot, and you know, now with the nonprofit that we have, the Creative Outpost, and had our first successful community presentation and workshop last week. It was a lot of fun and something that we're going to continue forward with.
Amazing. It's amazing to see
content creation, kind of like, you know, podcasts and
like this,
you know, television studios and, you know, all kinds of stuff.
We'll
see where it goes.
I know. And in 4 years, look where it's come. So imagine in 4 more years where we'll be at. So
do you know, speaking of that, the story on the bread basket in Dallasville?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So I can measure number of people who've read stories,
which is amazing to me too, because I can't even figure out how to use my square at the store. So anyway,
more than 60,000 people read that story.
Insane. That's
about
so
the bread
cool.
basket.
And how many people, for perspective, if you're just listening to this, how many people actually are in this area? Like, what's the census for Dallasville and Little Falls?
Let's see. Dallasville, I think, is about 2,500. Little Falls is about 4,600. So
nowhere near 60,000 people. So you know, that's the coolest thing.
Yeah, we've got some serious reach, and that's not a first, although that makes them the largest read story. I've got some that are close to that as
really
well,
cool.
you know, in the 50,000 range. And so,
which, like I said, it's in perspective when you think about this area. And if you're not from this area, it's a huge reach. Like, it's not just our local news and everyone hears it. It's going further.
But think about what people want to hear, right? They're tired of what they hear every day. And they want to hear this feel good story.
Yeah, exactly.
Here you've got this couple, and they, you know, they started this little bakery in Dallasville, and you have people from California and everywhere coming in and saying, I didn't even find anything that's good in California.
I know.
Right? Oh my God.
Yep,
you know?
I know. It's the coolest too, because they're the coolest people, first off, too. So, and then their work ethic is insane, because he's in there, what time?
1 a.m. 1 a.m. in the morning to start baking.
Really? That's ridiculous.
Not my thing.
Not my thing either. I'll go and buy it. And
evidently not his wife's thing either, because she doesn't come in at 1 o'clock.
But she still goes in early.
She goes in early.
Perspective early. And then, you know, I think they're open, 8 now? Originally, I think they started at like 7 in the morning, found it wasn't like that dish, but by 8, they're still in there and rolling, which is just crazy to me in general. So, and then everything they do, even on Mondays, which is their typical day off, you'll go by and they're there all day, because I think they do their big orders for other restaurants. So it's really neat. But that's insane though. Thinking about a 9-hour day on July 4th to having a $60,000 store, or $60,000. Yeah, maybe it could be $60,000 store eventually. So maybe as you get one like for each one, it'll be down. But that would be really cool. But either way, 60,000 people seeing it is crazy.
And I think I saw some stats. Now, this is the website only, because you know, Facebook, Apple News, Google News, we're in all these other outlets. And so some of them are hard to measure, the number of people who actually see something. And even on Facebook, we only put the feature stories there, but those numbers I can see, you know, number of people who've interacted with that. But those are on top of the website. So the website in 4 years is approaching 2 million stories read.
My gosh, crazy.
So I saw that stat the other day. I was looking, because I you know, can track that. I just happened to pull up since the beginning stats. I was like, are you kidding me?
Do you remember how you started out? Like your first story? Like, was it 2,000 people, you know, or the numbers? I don't remember. It probably wasn't that significant, but remember, I seeded it with things that I had done earlier, like in 2017. So this was 2018, but I had, remember the Viking ship that came through Little Falls, and the cheese festival started in 2017. And so those were the stories I kind of had in there to seed it, to make like there was some content in there instead of blank pages and sections and whatever. This is my first story. Here it is. A little, that's awesome.
But I mean, that was kind of the thing when I covered things in this area, and I was doing the Art in the Adirondacks, which covered 12 counties. When I did things in this area, they got just more attention, more traffic than other areas like Placid or Saranac or, you know, Lake George. And while I love going to those places, that's a lot of driving. And today with the costs would be crazy.
Exactly. It's so cool. But I'm so thankful, obviously, for on a number of levels, which we'll explain this too, because we're going to talk about the event space now, because that's something that we haven't talked about on the podcast. And I thought of it and I was like, I have everybody else on talking about their business. I should probably talk about my business at some point, right?
Well, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's a big thing. Event spaces are a big thing.
And it is. And it's kind of the weirdest niche market because honestly, the events, I've just found that I like running things, like organizing things just from baseball. That was it. And I was like, well, I can do that. And I have the flowers, which we just talked about, the cost of flowers. Yeah. So that's the beauty of this space. So,
what's interesting is every time you go to the Diamond Dogs game, you end up working a booth or something.
I do. It's ridiculous. I had, Scott, when he came up, and I didn't have the heart to tell Scott, but maybe if he listens to this, or you can tell him later.
Yeah.
He came up to me and he's like, hey, we're all here. We're ready to run out. And I was like, that's great, but I don't do anything with it anymore. And
he was telling you, that's funny.
And I was like, well, you got to look for Finn. She'll be over here. She's got the Diamond Dog shirt on, whatever. And then I think he had like a first pitch or something and stuff. And then I ended up grabbing him for one of the on-fields too. And I was like, I just fall right back into place.
Just go right with it. Yeah.
It's great. So, but yeah, that's where I learned, I guess, that I like to organize things. So with the space, I had some people, and I don't know if I should say who they were on here, if I can plug who did the beautiful video for me.
I don't know who that would be, but
I don't know who it was.
Say what the space was first. I mean,
it was an old church. So it was an old, and everyone's asked me what denomination it was. I know at one point it was a Baptist. Before that, it was, I think, a Universalist. I believe I've heard Episcopalian. I'm really not sure. Over the years since it's been erected, there have been a number of different denominations that have been in there. And then most recently, before I took over, there was a guy that was in there Saturday nights, and he was just doing like a worship night type of thing. So nothing really on Sundays anymore, not an official church, just more of like a gathering type of space. They ended up moving to, I think, his mother-in-law's house instead, just because they didn't need as much space, which led the woman who had the space to ask me if I wanted to move the flower shop in there, which at that point I said, sure, we can, there was things going on. So we moved it up there. But then there was this large space, which would have been like in a typical church, like the sanctuary area. And it's nice for a flower shop, but then there's only so much that you can fill it with. And then without taking away from the character of it, I said, well, these windows are beautiful. There's tables and chairs in here. There's a few pews. And I kept thinking, what's a way that people can save money on having flowers at the same time, and also me being selfish, saying that all this water isn't flopping around in my car. I said, you know what? I have all week. I'm here, every single day of the week. I could start making the arrangements so that people can come in and enjoy them and leave. And I didn't honestly realize when I was thinking that people actually wanted to do that. So as compared to saying, I'm going to go to a park and take all of my picnic things up there, they were interested in having it somewhere undercover, somewhere that wasn't out in the elements. I tell everyone that's coming in now to rent that it's more like a picnic thing. So you're thinking, I don't do any of the catering because I'm not a caterer, but you're welcome to bring in a caterer. You can bring in any other things that you want, but you also have the beauty of using the whole space and the whole floor as the floor plan. So we put in some tables, some chairs, made it look kind of homey, but at the same time making it look like a flower shop. We have some dried florals all around the spaces, and that's what you're renting. And then on top of that, like we just talked about for our $70 little arrangement, every table has a centerpiece on it, which at that point, when you're looking at centerpieces, I tell everyone about 7 tables usually is what you're going to have out there between your buffet lines and everywhere that people are sitting. Plus, I won't leave anything in the cooler. So you have the use of all of the flowers as a rental space included in your price. So going out and getting, and I'll freely share how much we charge for it too. So it's $175 an hour and a 3-hour minimum. So you're looking at $525 for 3 hours. And then you have an hour of setup and takedown, which I'll explain that as well too. So
how many people are we talking about?
So you can have up to 50 in there. So It's comfortable for up to 50. I'm at the 40. I like to plug 40 because 40 is very comfortable in there. You have a lot of space to move around. Everybody's not on top of each other. My pet peeve has always been too that you're sitting at a table and you're elbow to elbow. That will not be that even with 50 in there. You can fit probably 75 or 80, like that open house. I think there were quite a few in there.
There were a lot, yeah.
And it's comfortable still, but just for me, my pet peeve has always been I got to have some elbow space,
little room to move around.
Yeah, so that's how that works with that. But I'm going to stick to my list for this so I don't forget anything on it. So with each centerpiece, like I said, you're running at $100, $150 a centerpiece. You're going to buy 7 of those at $100, say you're looking at $700 for somewhere else too. And you already have that included with the space. That's the main part that I try and plug with everyone here. What else is included with it? And I didn't realize that linens are a thing. Like the tables and chairs to rent the linens are on all the tables already. So I just didn't think that was a thing, but everyone who's come in, they're like, oh, the linens are included. Yeah, that's part of it. I would never think to give someone.
But if you were doing a wedding somewhere else, you would end up having to rent those. I mean, every single thing is
which
a rentable
I didn't realize.
item. Yeah.
I didn't even realize, but that's included with the space. So
nice.
When you have a shower and stuff too, you can come in and the linens are already there for you. Obviously the seats and the tables and the chairs, that's another thing I didn't realize that most places charge per seat, per table. You have full use. We set it up. If you have 25 people or 50 people, either way, we'll have it set up in there for you. And then, like I said, the main floor of the store, the parking is handicap accessible too. So that's nice. And then you have a whole lower lot that's off street parking. Even though we're not a huge metropolis, it's nice not to have your car out.
Well, it's all freshly paved too. It's all nice.
It is. Thank you to my landlord, because that was not me.
She did that was great. Yes. It looks really nice.
I think it was Pete McCree ended up doing it there in Herkimer, and he did a great job. In 2 days they were there, and they looped around the building with a little bit of crusher run and stuff too. So there's like all these little outlets that you can go to that you won't get stuck in there either. So like I like to park kind of behind the building, and then I can still get out if everyone's having a party too. So it's nice how she set it up too. So it's very, very user friendly, we'll say. You won't get stuck there either. So then we have a photo booth little area that we set up too, which I just thought was cute for selfies and stuff. But everybody seems to like those now, because that's the new thing with everyone. So
I can't believe it wasn't a Diamond Dogs.
I know.
I know.
You stick your head in it. Yeah. Maybe I'll have Travis bring it up for the end of the season. I'll be in there, and it'll just rent in there too.
You could do that. Charge him.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then we have the piano too, and then the outdoor space. So that's all included while you're up there. And then another thing that people have talked about that they didn't realize too is the garbage, which I don't even think of these things. I guess it's just as I'm organizing things, I never even think that you have to take your own garbage out of these places, but we take care of the garbage for you too.
Oh,
so,
nice.
And then we have one steward, I call it, that's going to be on all the time that you're there. So you don't have to feel pressured if you break something. The store, if you've been there, Sage, my little pup, is always in there. She's not a puppy. She's she's an 85.
That's a big ass dog.
Yeah. She's an 85-pound golden lab, I guess they call it.
Yeah.
So her tail is right about there where a little kid's tail or whatever hand would be. So I tell everyone it's user friendly for kids and for dogs. That don't worry about it at that level. I know stuff's gonna get hit, gonna fall over, break. It happens. So, but it's nice to have someone on staff, so to speak. If you need more toilet paper, if you need, obviously there's a use of a bathroom too. But if you need something or garbage bags need to be changed and stuff, we'll do that all for you too. And then with the setup, this is another thing that people haven't realized when they come in. So the setup, I've told everyone we have a bridal shower next week. And so what you're allowed to do is you can bring in your bags of what you want for favors on tables or name cards or anything like that. And we'll set them up for you. So while you can literally just walk in and walk out.
And it's ready to go.
Yes. And I tell everyone, basically you're thinking the only thing you would need to set up is just for your food. So if you have a caterer or if you're bringing in food, that's what you're using your setup time for. Otherwise, everything else could be set up for you from us. And that's all included with it. So
and you've got kind of a good little niche, because there are a lot of other event centers that have already been here or are coming about.
Yeah.
But the thing I saw was that they're all targeting different size audiences, and nobody's targeting your size.
Yes, and I love my size.
So you've got a great range.
And everyone's asked me, oh, do you think I do have one wedding party that they had asked me prior to starting this, and then figuring out we only wanted to do 50 or less. They're going to have a little bit more than 50, and I'm really. I wish there was a couple of places in Dallasville that had it ready for more than 50, but they're not quite ready yet. So it's one of those things that I'm like, this is my niche. I'm good with it. This is what I like to do, and, a lot of places don't have the flowers included. You can go to a golf center if you want to do a men's day, and women's day or like a baby shower would be more floral oriented. So I like to say this. Have I said this on the podcast yet? This is my new quote. There's a seat for every ass. Have I said that before? You really got to think about it, because I have to think about it now.
If you had said that, I would have remembered.
Yeah. Okay. So when we're going to break it down now, because this is my new quote too. So it is. And you really think about it and you're like, there's a seat for every ass, because everybody has their own niche, but everybody has a seat. Like there's never going to be a lack of florists, but everybody's going to have their own niche. There's never going to be a lack of photographers, but everyone's going to have their own niche. And so I really hold on to that. And I'm like, it's when I had a friend tell me that, and I was like, that's really a good way to look at it, because then it's not competition driven, but everybody has their own place. And when you really look at it.
Yeah. I heard one place was talking about, we can only handle so many people. Right. And if we get a request for more than that, we go over to say to Rustic Ties.
Exactly.
Who can handle, can handle 400 or 500
He
there.
can handle, like a ton of there. And then same thing with the mill, supposedly is going to be one of the places too in town, just specifically in Dowdesville.
But
that's what
I don't
I'm looking
know
at.
How many they're going to be able to handle size wise.
And that's I look in Dowdesville just because I'm in Dowdesville, where we can refer in that area.
But events are a little bit more regional. You need to look just a little bit. There's a bigger ring there. I say that for a reason, because I think we could brand ourselves as kind of an event destination.
Yes, definitely.
Because if you look at Beardsley Event Center and you look at, Grace and you look at yours and you look at Paradise is a new one.
Yes, I know. I saw
Rustic
that too.
Ties.
Yep.
I mean, and they're all different. They all accommodate a different number of people.
Exactly.
They all have different styles, and they should all work together and refer to each other. Oh, yeah. Because when one gets a call, if Rustic Ties gets a call for 50, he doesn't want 50 people there.
Exactly. And I don't want 100.
Yeah, like exactly. So that might be better for Paradise.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And that's where, too, around here, this is my bid for anybody who's listening that wants to think of a business that you want to start in this area. We need places to stay. So that's one of the things. I'm going to plug this now. So beyond doing the actual just small events like the baby showers, bridal showers, meetings, gatherings, so we're doing the micro weddings. So the beauty with the micro wedding is that that's 22 people is where I'm starting at. You can go up to 44 total with the bride and groom. 22 is what the starting base price is. The beauty with my space is that the woman who lives next door has an Airbnb.
So the bride could stay there.
Yes, it's a beautiful little niche market that I tell everyone, if you want 10 people to come with you, you can literally stay in this house next door, because she doesn't have all of her Airbnb suites up. But
do you know where another good spot is? Right here in Little Falls, the Asteroga House.
I didn't.
Did you see the story I did on that?
I did.
Oh, awesome.
Because you can, I heard you can just go and stay there and just have a girls' night. Like that's the coolest thing.
Yeah. And I forgot, did I have to read the story again, but how many bedrooms does she have? Like
I don't remember, but it's, it's a small gathering, but not like a huge gathering. But at the same time, it's, you have more than 10 people. You don't want them in your house either. Yeah, exactly. So I've had that request many times. Would you do a breakfast? Because my, we're having a wedding, but we don't want to have everybody at the house afterwards. Sure. We'll do something like that. So the possibilities are endless, I guess, right now. I haven't had anything that I've said, no, I don't think I could do that yet. So right now, if you have any interest, give me a call. We can figure something out. But that's kind of the basis of what the event space is. And, for the most part, it stays right around where the hours are that I'm normally there for the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5s, type of thing. This is on the offset. So for the most part, it's on Saturdays or Sundays. And like I said, you have that use of all the rentals of the flowers, which here's my little total. I got to stick to my list here with it. You go 6 to 9 arrangements or so all the way through the building. And then the install that I have of the dried floral install, and you've seen that in there.
Oh, yeah.
Approximate what you think that might cost if you had that like on location at your wedding, or at
all your dried? Mm-hmm. Oh, that'd be thousands.
Yes, yep. So it's approximated. We've had between 2,500 and 2,500 and 3,000 is what that would be.
Yeah, I would believe that.
But that's part of your rental. So that's where it's kind of exciting too, that you don't have to take that on if you wanted to have a quick meeting or something. You don't have to have a $3,000 placement in your shop, and then I don't need it anymore. So that's kind of the beauty of the space too, or even a piano if you don't want to bring a piano into your space. So and like I said, mine is a completely niche market all the way through with the flowers, and even I say it to even the person, like I'm not anywhere else. So remember that Heath isn't anywhere else too. You got to find somebody that's going to work with you, because there's a seat for every ass. So you find someone you like, I would highly suggest to keep them on, because I've heard horror stories of coordinators and people that, you can't count on. And so it is a big thing too, especially if you're looking at weddings or wedding flowers or big events that your investment, you want to make sure you have someone behind you that you completely trust. And we are very fortunate in this area that I don't think there are many that I would not suggest. But it's a blessing and a curse because, you know, you do have to be careful too going into it. And if you're venturing out here and you've never been out here, just make sure you're really on board with who's taking care of you, because then you'll have the best experience.
Well, it's supposed to be a one-time event, right?
It is. It is.
Get married once.
Well, that's it for the weddings, and then, you know, for the actual parties, and then, you know, the bridal showers and things too. It's a coordinating thing. I mean, that's one of the things that with baseball and stuff too. Mrs. Heiser saw me. She's like, "There's no one like you." And I said, "I don't really know what that means, but I guess I kind of do now with my store, because I see little things. One of the girls I have in there, and I go, oh, I'm not trying to nitpick, but you gotta think of this way, or move it around a little bit too." So everybody has their own spin on things. So you really got to find somebody that meets that for you, especially when you're investing in it.
Yeah.
See that investment?
Looping back. Okay.
Yes, looping back. See, that's the whole investment today. So anyway, but yes.
Make an investment in your relationship, folks.
I know, exactly. That's it. So, you know, and if you have any questions and stuff, we're located right in the heart of Dollarville, and you can come up to the Bread Basket. Southern Girls up there. Green Acres is open now for the season. If you need any car parts, go to Napa. I'm trying to think what else you can go.
Zip Hardware.
Yes, Zip Hardware's there. Big M, you know. So I think I hit everybody that's up the line. So there's a little bit to do in town too, so you can take a look at it.
Hey, you got the community band and the park, and you got the farmers market. You know, Dallasville's got a lot of stuff going on.
It does. So, you know, stop up anytime, see it and stuff too. And if you have any questions, contact me. However, and we'll go through it all. So I think that was my whole podcast for today. So we covered a lot, but what's the one takeaway you got from it?
Investment. There
we go. So we hope you enjoyed today's conversation, and we'll talk to you next time.